Hey Sean, welcome. I'm so excited to have you here.
I'm excited to see you again. It's been a couple of years since
It has, since
we've been able to make face-to-face
since
contact.
the last time we did the tracheal airway course,
Correct.
and you were here, and it was a wonderful experience to have you here. And since that time that I've met you, I've really come to kind of evolve my thinking a little bit about how we approach the airway, particularly when it comes to tracheal access. Because one of the things that I think we all have become aware of is that the video laryngoscopes can do these great views, but then actually delivering the tube can be difficult.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's anybody I know who's thought more about this than you. You've actually created a device, the TCI, that is focused on solving some of those problems. So I thought since you're in town, I thought this was a great opportunity for me to ask you, what is your thinking? Where is your thinking about this? And why is tracheal access so hard in the age of the video laryngoscope?
Yeah, I think, I have thought about it like this, mostly not pre-thought about it, but reflexively thought about it as I've been working on solving the problems.
Yeah.
And one of the things we really lack is good models for airway management. What is airway management, or what is intubation?
Mm-hmm.
And the model I'm currently thinking of most is there's three components to the system that allows us to intubate. There's the operators, you and I.
Yeah.
There are access components, and there's visualization components, and we've really focused on the visualization components, the DL and VL, and that's because of the evolutionary history. With DL, you created a straight line to the trachea, and by definition it was direct laryngoscopy, and so it's like a plane. The rule in a plane is if you can see a light at night, you can fly to that light because there's nothing in between. And the geometry of DL is all straight lines. You remember being taught alignment of axes and things like which it was always hard for me to process.
Right. I always remember it was all about the axes,
Yeah.
lining up the axes. Right.
Lining up the axes.
What it was all about.
And the reason we failed with DL was because we couldn't see.
Right.
And so nobody thought about access, because if you could see, access was simply a straight line, and your troubles were over. You could almost always access. So with DL, visualization is hard, but if you get the visualization, access is actually pretty easy. It's a straight line.
Yeah, I think back to my residency days when I was learning DL. I can remember thinking like, I just need to find my landmarks.
Yeah.
I just need to get that view. And once I got that view, I never really worried that much about actually getting the tube in. It was a rare instance when it actually didn't slide into the hole, because I got those axes all lined up. But video laryngoscopy has changed the game, and it solved that problem of getting views, right?
Yeah.
Now I look up on the screen and like for someone who started off with DL, like I still am sometimes, now with my glide scope, I've got this big high def screen, and I'm like, oh my God, look at this! How can I not be able to intubate this patient? Because it's like staring me right there in the face. But in fact, that's actually wrong, right?
That's it. It turns out it's wrong. So the problem we were focused on when VL was invented was visualization. The visualization component. We really didn't think much about the access component, because the access just followed direct visualization. And so what a video laryngoscope does is allow us to work around the corners. And you notice I'm saying corners, not lines. Humans are not linear. If you look at the airway, it is a corner that goes, there's a first curve or corner here, and there's actually a second corner that then inflects at my trachea, where my trachea begins. And so we have to move around this serpentine pathway. And so traditionally with the DL, what we're doing is we're flattening all those curves and making a straight line or a straight line, and everything's easy. But that flattening those curves is really, really hard to do with DL, and it takes a lot of training, a lot of 100 intubations to get to a mastery level. With VL, we're actually looking around that curve, and so the curves are now intact. And so tube delivery is become an issue, and the science shows us this, that we're 15, 20 years into the introduction of the video laryngoscope. It has absolutely solved our visualization problems. It is exceedingly rare that I can look into a clean airway and not be able to see my landmarks.
Right.
And I'll make a distinction between landmarks and geometry, because landmarks live on a two-dimensional plane like this. Geometry lives in a longitudinal axis, and that's what I think we're missing in our training, and we're missing in our mental models. And so with a video laryngoscope, now when we look at why do we fail with video laryngoscopes, 86-87% of the time it's a tracheal access problem. And it's the classic clinically expressed, I can see where I want to be, I just can't get there.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've been expressing this to my residents in a very simplified term, which is, the view's easy, the tube delivery's hard.
Correct.
But they're not really getting what I'm saying. And I think that, I'm having an opportunity to talk to you about this several times now. I feel like I'm starting to get a much better sense of the problem we're dealing with. And, interestingly, I think you think back to when we transitioned from DL to VL, something you just said really struck me, which was that, our experience was that if we level out all those planes and create a straight line, then we're good. And so all of our human skills, all the fine motor skills, our conceptual models, everything was built around that idea.
Mm-hmm.
And so then we tried to translate that over to VL, which was that, now that I have the great view, the delivery should just come.
Yeah.
But now we're in a different, we're not on the same playing field. It's
Nope.
like we were playing hockey, now we're playing basketball.
Yeah. So the model is shifting, and remember, the model lives in your head and my head.
Right.
That's our personal model, but really what we're talking about is the institutional model, or the anesthesia, the intubation model that we all share.
Yeah.
And it's that shared model that takes a long time to change. And so, pushing the model forward and starting to communicate differently, that we're not talking about straight lines anymore. We should all be thinking in terms of curves.
Right.
It takes a long time to, that's just the way medicine works.
So we're not thinking straight lines anymore, we're thinking curves.
Geometry
And
is curvy.
we're not thinking anatomy, because we can pop that
Anatomy
blade
is-
in and get a great view of the anatomy. We're talking about geometry.
Geometry, yeah. So the anatomy is pretty easy to learn. It
Right.
turns out,
Yeah.
our students and our learners are not having troubles recognizing. They aren't failing because they don't know what the chords look like or what the arytenoids look like. They're failing because they don't understand the geometry.
Right.
And remember, anatomy is on a two-dimensional plane this way,
Right.
but we need to be able to look in our mind what's in front of the video laryngoscope, what's past the vocal cords, and that's that curve that is a serpentine curve.
Right.
And so that's the challenge now, is how do you get people to think in a different axis.
Right.